Hi, this is Nancy Love. It is August the 23rd, 2022. This is another installment of the Return to Innocence Game Over science fiction series that I have been putting on my YouTube channel, the Planet Peace Project. Planet Peace Project is primarily documentary style or news related to things like politics and behavioral medicine. And it's dedicated to helping people explore and understand the world, as well as how to be a soul living in a physiological form in a more healthy fashion. But I am putting Return to Innocence Game Over on the same channel because I want the current subscribers and fan base to get the updates, and I don't want to have to start a second channel. So it purports to be science fiction, but I think that a lot of you will recognize only too clearly that a lot of the ideas in Return to Innocence Game Over are straight out of your own life. I am talking about slavery, ubiquitous, on a planet in which a thing called the game has taken over. It is a computer virus, and people are infected with nanobots, and other types of electronic implants have been inserted into their forms without their knowledge or permission by governments, plural. And yes, there is sort of a new world order, and all the governments are pretty much the same government, but they're disguised as different governments. Sound familiar? Thought so. Now, in our story on August the 23rd, 2020, NKUltra, the lead character, our hero, becomes sort of famous because she goes out onto a hilltop in Texas, in central Texas, and she appears to be alone. She climbs this hilltop and she makes a speech. The speech, she finds out years later, has become enshrined in a basement museum of sorts in the National Security Agency. A president of the United States that she has the privilege to speak to tells her that he's read her speech from August the 23rd, 2020, and it is in gold leaf in a beautiful frame, and it's put sort of in a sort of a shrine-like area in a museum that is in the basement of the National Security Agency. And not a lot of people get to see it, but some do, and he had. She asks all a wonder why the NSA, of all things, would enshrine such a speech, because it's basically pro-freedom and anti-surveillance, and it's not pro-big government or pro-big brother. It's actually about freedom and the rights of the individual to live without a lot of interference, and certainly without nanobots and so forth. And he replies that a lot of the people in the NSA are closet pro-freedom people as well, and they hate what they've become. They really hate what they've become and what they do for their paycheck. So the gist of the speech is that NKUltra, oh, and incidentally, she also asked how the heck did anybody know what she said, because she was alone on the hilltop and wasn't carrying any recording devices, and the president says, tut tut. After growing up in the MKUltra program, having been born at a National Security Agency attached military intelligence base, and having people pull transmitters out of your ears and tell you that you had been implanted with nanobots later on, you gotta ask? And then she realizes, oh, of course, she had never been alone, not on a hilltop, not out in the country. She had never truly been alone without someone listening a day in her life. But the speech goes kind of like this. She knows that she's talking to some extraterrestrial entities, and she's bellowing at the top of her lungs, seemingly alone on a hilltop in Texas. And she tells them that she's aware of their ubiquitous surveillance program and how completely out of control their electronic implant program has become, and that it has been sold to governments all over the world, and that children don't get to be adults without having some sort of surveillance equipment essentially implanted in their bodies. And some of this equipment is also oriented toward controlling them as well, influencing their behavior and their thoughts. And she says that she knows that a lot of people call this the mafia on her world, this science fiction world, probable timeline, alternate scenario that we have discussed previously. And she talks about the mafia as if it is the scourge that it is on our world, that it enslaves all that it touches, and that it is a curse upon nature, and it's unholy and unnatural and against every god she could possibly believe in. But she says that the one thing that sustains her is that she understands that this was imposed on the human species from without. And she says that she would rather know that the mafia and the game had been imposed on human beings by an extraterrestrial species that didn't really care about them or understand them, their beauty, or their yearning for freedom and creative control over their own lives, than be a member of any species that would do this to itself. She would rather understand that this had been imposed upon humanity by beings who weren't from around here than to think that she was a member of a species that would do the mafia to itself. So, in the 22nd anniversary of NKUltra standing on a hilltop, saying things like, "This is my planet, and humanity is my people. And if you want to do this, to impose this slavery on humanity, you're gonna have to come through me, because they're all my people. Every human being on this world is one of my own. So if you think that you can enslave humanity, by God, you are gonna have to come through me, and you won't make it." Some more on this science fiction later. An addendum: get yourself sterilized, people. Get all the birth control you need or whatever. Go celibate. Do something. But please don't do this world to anyone else. If you love children, don't have it.